On May 8, 2008, in Taylor County, Colorado, USA, in a small village called Woodland Park, with a population of no more than 8,000 people, a girl named Kate Maddox was preparing dinner in the kitchen. Suddenly, her middle brother, Josh, entered and asked her if she needed anything before he left the house. She asked him, "When will you be back?" He replied, "Wait for me for dinner and don't eat without me." Josh left the house without anything unusual happening. There was no sign or evidence to suggest that this young man would never return home. Yet, day after day, Josh never came back, despite promising his sister he would return for dinner. His family turned their world upside down looking for him. The police conducted searches for nearly a year, but their efforts proved fruitless. Over time, rumors began to circulate. It was said that the salt had melted, a metaphor indicating hopelessness. Many believed Josh had fulfilled the promise he had always made, traveling to New Mexico to pursue his dream of becoming a famous guitarist. Everyone clung to the belief that Josh would one day return after fulfilling his dream. His family held on to this hope until 2015. Then, by a strange and bizarre coincidence, Josh reappeared. Everything the family had believed about Josh's disappearance was completely wrong. He had been found in a place so unimaginable that no human would have guessed it. This shocking revelation led to whispers and speculations. People began saying that Josh was not just an artist or a musician, but a magician, someone who communicated with mysterious beings. They even called him the most remarkable villain they had ever seen. This story is about everything strange and mysterious on Earth. Today, I will tell you the tale of Josh Maddox, a story I promise will be the strangest disappearance you've ever heard in your life. On March 9, 1990, in the same small village of Woodland Park, the second child of the Maddox family was born. His name was Josh. Josh lived with his father and mother for the first 3 years of his life. Over time, the Maddox family grew to 6, a father, a mother, and 4 children: Zachary, Josh, Kate, and Ruth. However, due to unclear circumstances, the couple separated. Josh moved with his father to live at his grandfather's house, along with his siblings. Despite being deeply attached to his mother, Josh adapted to the situation and lived his childhood without issue. I mention these details to assure you that nothing in Josh's early life seemed out of the ordinary. Josh had a passion for music and musical instruments. At the age of 5, he began learning to play the guitar. He spent his youth playing and composing music, earning praise from everyone who knew him. People often remarked that he would become a famous artist one day. As time passed, Josh entered high school. He was loved by everyone, a handsome young man with long blonde hair and a sweet laugh. Josh was kind-hearted and talented. Most importantly, he was an exceptional guitarist. His youth seemed idyllic. There was no sign of trouble or anything that could foreshadow what would come next. But then, something unimaginable happened. On June 1, 2006, a tragedy struck the Maddox family. The father entered the room of his eldest son, Zachary, who was 18 years old at the time. To his horror, he found Zachary hanging from the ceiling. The sight was shocking and completely unexpected. Later, it became clear that Zachary had been suffering from severe depression for about 3 years. The pain and despair had reached such a point that he ended his life in this way. However, Zachary had never shown obvious signs of depression. The family struggled to reconcile this, saying that Zachary was quiet, introverted, and did not talk much. Unlike his younger brother, Josh, who was outgoing, popular, and artistic, Zachary's reserved nature often made him seem detached, and those close to him speculated that he might have been hiding deeper psychological struggles. Despite their grief, the Maddox family managed to move forward. As difficult as Zachary's death was, they slowly found a way to continue living, though the loss always lingered. 2 years later, on May 8, 2008, the family faced yet another crisis. On that day, Josh Maddox left the house and disappeared without a trace. No one saw him again. After 5 days of waiting and searching, his father reported him missing to the police. Investigations began, and the family, along with authorities, searched tirelessly for Josh. For 6 months, they scoured the area, questioned people, and followed leads, but nothing turned up. In desperation, the family turned to Josh's personal belongings, including his diaries and notes. His sister, Kate, shared what she knew. Kate and Josh had grown especially close after Zachary's death, and they often confided in each other. According to Kate, Josh had always talked about his dream of moving to New Mexico. Josh believed New Mexico was a land of artistic opportunity where he could pursue his ambition of becoming a famous guitarist. Kate told the police she was certain her brother had gone there to chase his dream. She explained that he likely joined an unknown band as a beginner, which would explain why he hadn't made a public appearance yet. But as time passed, it became increasingly clear that Josh hadn't gone to New Mexico. He had vanished completely, leaving no evidence of his whereabouts. Now, you know who Josh Maddox was and the tragedies that befell his family. Before I reveal where Josh was eventually found, let me tell you about a seemingly unrelated story from the same town of Woodland Park. About 70 years ago, an American businessman named Chuck Murphy purchased a small house on the outskirts of the forest near Woodland Park. He planned to transform the property into a restaurant and bar. By 1960, the business was thriving. However, as time went on, Chuck became more involved in the construction and contracting industry, leaving the restaurant under less careful management. The restaurant gradually fell into disrepute, becoming a den for illegal activities such as drug use, dealing, and other immoral behaviors. Police frequently raided the location, arresting those involved. This continued until 1998, when Chuck decided to shut the business down. Chuck's brother, who had been managing the property, decided to live there after the closure, converting it back into a home. He stayed there until 2005, when he left and abandoned the house entirely. For years, the building stood vacant, with no one daring to approach it. What connects this house to Josh Maddox's disappearance? That is where this story takes an even darker and more mysterious turn. Chuck Murphy, then 80 years old, decided it was time to demolish and renovate the 2015 abandoned house he had once owned, intending to transform it into a hotel. Restoration work began, and everything was progressing smoothly. However, on August 7, 2015, just past noon, a worker reached the chimney in the main hall to clear it. The worker started breaking through the chimney, removing debris that had built up over the years. After working for more than an hour, he noticed something unusual. Sunlight wasn't passing through the chimney as expected. This indicated that something was blocking the light from above. Curious, the worker leaned into the chimney and peered upward. The darkness prevented him from seeing clearly, so he grabbed a flashlight and shone it inside. When he looked again, what he saw made him scream and stumble backward in shock. Panicked, he shouted to the other workers, "There's something horrifying inside the chimney. Run." The other workers rushed over to see what was causing the commotion. Upon inspecting the chimney, they found what looked like a figure wedged inside. What appeared to be an old, decayed corpse suspended in the narrow shaft. Horrified, they immediately contacted the police. When law enforcement arrived and began their investigation, it didn't take long to identify the remains. To everyone's disbelief, the body was confirmed to be that of Josh Maddox, the young man who had been missing for 7 years. The police informed Josh's family, and the news devastated them. For 7 years, they had clung to hope, imagining Josh living his dream as a musician. Instead, he was returned to them as a mummy, his body eerily preserved by the cold temperatures within the chimney. However, the mystery didn't end there. Investigators quickly determined that the circumstances of Josh's death were far from ordinary. The first thing the investigators noted was Josh's unusual position inside the chimney. His body was curled up, resembling a fetus in the womb. His head was pointed downward, and his legs were above him, a posture that defied logic. Typically, if someone were attempting to enter a house through a chimney, they would lead with their legs. Yet here was Josh, headfirst, as if he had intentionally contorted himself into this baffling position. Investigators hypothesized that Josh might have entered the chimney and become stuck. Unable to free himself, he remained there until the cold temperatures, which often dropped to -7 degrees Celsius, 19 degrees Fahrenheit at night, led to his death. They suggested he may have tried to keep himself warm by curling up in this position. However, this explanation raised more questions than answers. The most baffling detail was that Josh had no injuries. There were no stab wounds, fractures, bruises, or signs of blunt force trauma. Even more peculiar, toxicology reports showed no traces of drugs or alcohol in his system. This meant Josh was completely sober and aware at the time of his death. The mystery deepened when investigators examined the area around the chimney. Josh's shirt, jacket, socks, and shoes were found neatly folded and placed next to the fireplace, suggesting that he had entered the house, removed his clothes, and then climbed into the chimney willingly, or under very unusual circumstances. This posed a chilling question. Why would a rational person willingly climb headfirst into a chimney and remain in such a position until they died? Theories began to emerge, but none could fully explain the bizarre nature of Josh Maddox's death. This unsolved case remains one of the strangest and most unsettling stories to ever emerge from Woodland Park. Sealed from above with metal rods, a feature that Chuck confirmed had been in place for over 30 years, ever since the property had been converted into a restaurant. Additionally, the chimney was covered from below with a wooden plank, a piece that workers had broken during the demolition. This left a chilling question. How did Josh get into the chimney? There was no way in from above due to the rods, and no way in from below because of the wooden plank. It was as if Josh had appeared in the chimney out of nowhere. This inexplicable mystery made headlines, and soon the story of Josh Maddox was on everyone's lips. As the case gained notoriety, police began receiving numerous tips and confessions from people claiming to have killed Josh. Unsurprisingly, most of these were baseless, attention-seeking claims. However, one name stood out: Andrew Neiman, a man with a criminal record serving a 20-year sentence in New Mexico for robbery and the murder of a disabled young man and his father. Andrew became a person of interest for several reasons. First, witnesses reported seeing him with Josh in the months leading up to Josh's disappearance. Second, investigators discovered an old post Andrew had made on a social media platform, where he mentioned knowing a very thin, golden-haired young man who loved music and writing. Andrew described how they bonded over their shared love for the guitar and had even made plans to form a band together. In the post, Andrew speculated that this young man had likely moved to New Mexico without telling him, breaking their agreement to travel together. This revelation established a clear connection between Andrew and Josh, but it also raised questions. If Andrew knew Josh well and had no apparent conflict with him, why would he kill them? The answer, as it turned out, was simple. He didn't. Andrew's claims were purely for attention. Already serving a long prison sentence, he sought notoriety by attaching himself to Josh's mysterious story. Investigators found no evidence linking Andrew to Josh's death, and his involvement was ultimately dismissed. Yet, with no answers from Andrew or anyone else, the theories surrounding Josh's death grew darker. One of the most bizarre claims suggested that Josh had been involved in satanic rituals. According to this theory, he was under the influence of evil spirits that commanded him to enter the chimney. In this narrative, Josh removed the wooden plank himself, climbed into the chimney, and ultimately froze to death while in a trance-like state. Though far-fetched, this theory gained traction among conspiracy theorists. However, rational observers dismissed it as absurd, noting that it didn't explain how Josh entered the chimney in such a confined space or why he would deliberately place himself there in the first place. To this day, no one has been able to provide a logical explanation for how Josh Maddox ended up in the chimney. Investigators and theorists alike remain stumped. The case has been featured in several official reports and media outlets, but the questions linger. How did Josh bypass the metal rods at the top of the chimney? How did he remove the wooden plank below, if it was intact when the house was abandoned? Why would he willingly crawl headfirst into a chimney and remain there until he died? The story of Josh Maddox is shrouded in mystery, and while many theories attempt to make sense of it, most feel far-fetched or incomplete. The truth, if it exists, remains locked inside that chimney, leaving behind one of the most puzzling and eerie tales in recent history. When it comes to analyzing Josh Maddox's case, logic often clashes with the bizarre theories surrounding it, such as those involving evil spirits or superstitions. Let's break down the more plausible explanations. First, the owner of the abandoned house, Chuck Murphy, initially stated that the metal bars sealing the top of the chimney had been intact for years. However, he later revised his statement, claiming they had been removed long ago. Regarding the wooden plank that blocked the chimney from below, Chuck at first claimed no knowledge of its existence. Later, he suggested that his brother, who managed the property for years, might have placed it there. Many sources speculate that Chuck's inconsistent statements were deliberate attempts to influence the investigation, ensuring it wouldn't negatively impact his reputation or business ventures. With the investigation ongoing, suspicions surrounding the house could have implicated him, which would have had serious consequences for his construction and real estate dealings. Second, a more logical and disturbing theory involves the homeless individuals known to frequent the abandoned property. Some reports suggest that years before Josh's body was discovered, a homeless person mentioned to a local grocer that they had imprisoned a young man in the house. The homeless man allegedly added that the young man had likely died, as he was trapped in a place impossible to escape from. At the time, the grocer dismissed the story as a baseless claim from an unreliable source. He didn't investigate further or report the information to the authorities. Forensic experts later noted that if this account were true, any signs of violence on Josh's body would have been impossible to detect, as the remains were heavily decomposed after 7 years. This raises a grim possibility. Josh may have been incapacitated or placed into the chimney by someone else, possibly as part of a cruel act. However, without solid evidence or witnesses, this theory remains unproven, leaving the case unresolved. Adding to the absurdity, a local fortune teller appeared on television, claiming that the spirit of Josh's late brother, Zachary, had returned to exact revenge. According to her, Zachary blamed Josh for bullying him, which led to his suicide. Unsurprisingly, this theory was dismissed as unfounded and outlandish. As the investigation dragged on, many people, some attention seekers, others disturbed, confessed to killing Josh, further muddying the waters. In the end, the truth was lost, and Josh Maddox remained the sole victim of this baffling and tragic case. His only apparent desire in life was to live comfortably and pursue his passion for music, a dream cut short in the most inexplicable way. This was our story for today. What do you think happened to Josh Maddox? Could it have been foul play, a tragic accident, or something even stranger? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. If you're intrigued by mysterious cases, I recommend checking out the story of Zygmunt Adamski, a case so bizarre it makes Josh Maddox's seem straightforward by comparison. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay curious.